everybody, I give you a few minutes to come in here. Me and my giant pimple have decided to join you today for a few minutes. I'm all snuggled up in bed. It is so cold out there. It is such a cold January day. And I have been freezing all day long. So me and the girls got into bed. I made really hot tea. And I thought, I may as well talk to you guys. So we've got the new moon in Aquarius coming up here at 9 degrees on the 29th. This is very interesting because we also have Uranus going direct the very next day. So it's a fresh start. We always get the new moon in Aquarius, but when it lines up with the ruler of it, Uranus going direct at that same time, it feels like we are finally getting somewhere. This is a really good influence. We've been spinning our wheels, and since the new moon in Capricorn, there's been a progressive maturing, a rapid maturing that has occurred. And so now we have the chance to grow beyond the boundaries of Capricorn. Capricorn's how we grow up. It's how we accept greater responsibility for the course of our life. Because the more responsibility that we take for how things are going, for what happens to us, the more of a master and commander we are when it comes to our fate, our destiny. We're the creator of that rather than just the acceptor of what happens to us. So that new moon in Capricorn really urged us to deeply understand how we can affect every area of our life. We don't have to wait for other people to be the solution. We don't have to wait for other people to change. And so we have the freedom, oh my God, the freedom in Aquarius that comes from taking that kind of responsibility that we need to take in Capricorn. It leads to this autonomy, this breakthrough when you realize you don't have to work that hard. Life doesn't have to be that hard. So we lay down our burden in January and we come into this fresh new energy, this fresh start in Aquarius in February. And we get into the flow. Not everybody. Some of us can be very caught up in knuckling down, getting through the hard work of growing up. Because something has to be sacrificed or learned. Something has to be sacrificed in the process of going into greater freedom. We're going to have to leave something behind. That we've always fallen back on. That's always been a part of our life or our decision-making process. Decide. What am I going to leave behind in order to have better quality of life? So it could be a pattern, Could be a relationship, could be a way of being, could be a job. But there's a reckoning that happens. Yeah, the devil rules Capricorn. You know, we asked ourselves, is the devil that you know better than the devil that you don't know? Last month, this month with the new moon in Capricorn, and coming now into the new moon in Aquarius. Are you ready to go into unknown territory because you know what's good for you? Sometimes what's good for us is risky. Sometimes what's bad for us is what's risky. We have to know the difference. But with big risk brings the potential for great rewards. And we're risking greater freedom by being more honest about about what's inside of us, our feelings. Full moon in Cancer. That got you, didn't it? I'll bet that got you. That was a rough one. That brought us all back to seeing those vulnerabilities within us that we can really act out on if we are poked in just the right way. So, yeah, we leap forward into a more appreciative, grateful, free version of ourselves with the new moon in Aquarius. And we can feel like we're finally getting somewhere in terms of changes that have been ramping up and that are now gaining a great deal of momentum, and being able to leave some things behind that were so binding and childish and embarrassing. Yeah, we just don't want to waste our time on things that don't bring rewards with the new moon coming into Aquarius. Jessica, were my natal chart readings and relationship readings be open for the next few months? Yes, absolutely. Yep, I'm open. I am teaching, but I am still taking clients, less than what I'm used to, because I am teaching quite a bit, but you can still get an appointment. Okay. Can you describe North Node conjunct Neptune, and if that relationship is destined to happen because of the spiritual journey that is needed for the North Node? Oh, so you mean in synastry? No, it's not destined to happen. It may be something that occurs, and if the relationship does occur, then the idealism, the spirituality, the sweetness, sometimes the difficult issues connected with Neptune, that's going to be something that's very influential when it comes to the North Node person's dharmic path. See, we feed the North Node in synastry. The North Node person appreciates what we give to them. They appreciate our influence. This is a spiritual influence that you're bringing. It's a compassionate influence that you're bringing. But the North Node person It doesn't know what's matter what side it's in or who the North Node person is. The North Node always eats, it consumes, it takes. So the planet person feeds the North Node person. The North Node person appreciates that and applies that to their dharmic path. Um, North and South Node contacts are not necessary for good relationships. They don't go towards compatibility in, the scope of needs and, emotional involvement and availability. But it can show that we are an important part of what the North Node person has needs to develop in their personality in terms of latent traits or uh, what kind of their spiritual mission comes through that particular sign. Okay, YV, transiting Jupiter conjunct the descendant. That's a good one. Jupiter crossing any angle is fabulous. When it crosses the descendant, this is a good year for relationships, but just as many divorces can happen as the beginnings of new beneficial mutual relationships. We used to associate Saturn crossing the descendant more with breakups or separation or divorce. See it just as much with Jupiter. And it's because we are expanding so rapidly in terms of our expectations within relationships, our engagement within relationships. Our shadow self, the seventh house, is receiving one of the most growth inspiring transits that we can have, really within a year's time when Jupiter goes through the seventh. So I think that we can really outgrow um, relationships that we're in that maybe we need to be leaving or that have outlived their purpose or they haven't been good for a while. When Jupiter comes to the descendant, it can just be the straw that breaks the camel's back. But the separations, divorces, estrangements that we may experience are easier to deal with and friendlier than in other times in our life because we do have a frequency of forgiveness and uh, wanting to see the best outcome for all involved when Jupiter's going through the seventh. That's very much reflected back to us. Lost age. I noticed a lot of people quitting bad habits lately. Yeah, Sun was conjunct to Pluto on the 22nd. You see that having a big impact, especially if you have that particular conjunction of Sun Pluto in aspect to something personal in your chart. Yeah, this week was the out with the old, in with the new. Okay, this is a good question. LPLLL. I think that's what your name. Oh, Paul. I have no idea. You know who you are. What if Mars is conjunct Moon and Davidson, Mars opposite Moon and composite? What would feel more? All right, you're going to see this commonly in Davidson or midpoint composite charts where you will see two different versions of the same story. So when you see something like that, where it's showing as an opposition one or a conjunction in the other, it's it's a Moon Mars theme. Don't read it as just a conjunction or an opposition. It's showing you in any case, it doesn't matter which way you slice it, that we have a lot of feelings here. And we are trigger happy when it comes to how we mutually respond to the passions that we inspire in each other. Like there, we do not think before we react, and there's a lot of there's a lot of heat in a relationship with that kind of Moon Mars contact. We tend to have more sexual activity, more makeup sex, more fighting in general. So there is a lack of um, empathy that can also be shown with those aspects because we are so reactive and we take things so personally. Both of us do. It leaves very little room to consider the perspective or the experience of the other person. So, either which way you slice it, you have a hard aspect dynamic between the moon and Mars. Charlotte, I'm wondering if it's right to do a composite chart with two solar returns or lunar returns. Where's the limit for chart puzzles? That is a common question. I don't do things like that because what you're doing is you're taking a composite chart or yeah, let's just start with the composite. That's different than the solar. You're taking a composite chart which is already a made up chart. That chart doesn't exist anywhere in the universe. That's not an actual map of actual planets that are in actual relationship. So you're taking a artificial chart and then let me look at your question. Oh, I've got it backwards. You're talking about using the two solar returns. Okay, I was explaining it the other way. So using two solar returns to make a composite. I've never done that before. Mm, I don't think I would recommend that. Or two lunar returns to make a composite. I would just look at the individual charts on their own to look at what common things might you be seeing in the solar return and lunar return charts that might be leading you to believe that there's something that might be going on between the two. Like, are we both having good, relationship transits? Are we both going through breakup transits? Are we both having a similar theme of difficulty when you look at both lunar returns? So rather than make a composite, I would evaluate them on their own. Okay, what would you say about Venus square Moon and Venus trine Pluto in synastry? So Venus square to the Moon is okay. We'll have some superficial differences. Um, we may not understand the wants and the needs completely between the two of us. There's a bit of a clash there. The moon person can find the Venus person a little bit superficial, and the Venus person can find the moon person to be a little bit too emotional. But with the trine to Pluto on the other side, that's a link to depth. So although we can have some minor disagreements, there is this effortless way of creating an intense bond that is not uncomfortable or scary or threatening to the moon person with that trine to Pluto. So that's not a deal breaker. A moon in a square to Venus in synastry. It's the moon person that will interpret that as more consequential. But the other side of it is that there is depth. There actually is a tether with that trine to Pluto to things that are more meaningful, or more transformative. So it's fine. Hold on, finding a question. YV, moon opposite Venus in composite. I recommend it. I recommend it highly. Uh, yeah, Mark and I, the Emperor, we have that in our composite chart. It's the best relationship I've ever had. All of the aspects, except the in conjunction between Moon and Venus in composite charts, are excellent. The square is good in that it creates a lot of affection and this compulsive need to express that affection immediately. And there is above average amount of attraction and expressing that attraction even over the long term with that square. But it doesn't tell us about emotional compatibility like the other aspects between Moon and Venus do, which all indicate a high degree of emotional compatibility. The opposition is beautiful. The conjunction is fabulous. The trine is ideal. The sextile, wonderful. The quintile, awesome. In conjunction, a little weird. But all the other aspects between Moon and Venus in composite charts are highly sought after. And they're worth their weight in gold if you can get them. So with the opposition between Moon and Venus, we do have two opposing or very different emotional natures that are finding a seamless balance in the composite chart. So a lot of times we're going to have moons in square signs or opposite signs when we end up with that opposition. There's a or we can have moons in harmonious signs, but they'll be aspected like diametrically differently. But there's a reason why we have that opposition in a composite chart. Our family life, our backgrounds, our attachment systems, that can be very, very different. But there is a beautiful balance that each of us provide if we are able to manage and take responsibility for and understand our emotions. If both of us enter the relationship and we can't control our feelings, we lack emotional maturity, we're looking to the other person to be our emotional regulator, that opposition can represent a lot of emotional swings, ups and downs between the two of us. But for many people, we are a check on each other's emotional extremes. It depends on who the natal charts and how the two people manage their own feelings. But if there is good mutual emotional management, the emotional trust, the safety that can build is unparalleled. The trine, again, that is the best one that you can get in a composite chart. Moon, Venus trines, sextile, also beautiful, conjunction, opposition, depending on the opposition of depends who the two people are. What about Moon Venus sesquiquadrate in composite? That's going to be like the square, but a little less compulsive when it comes to having to express our love and attraction for each other so effusively and so quickly. Yeah, the sesquiquadrate is still fine in composite. Just look at it like a less bothersome square. None of the aspects are bad between Venus and Moon. Oh, the in conjunction is a little weird. Mm, let's see. Solar return, Uranus square Venus. So that's going to be a year where you are uh, quickly and uh, a lot of times rebelliously changing what it is that you want to spend your money on, what you're attracted to, values. If you're in a relationship where there's already an itch, or where things are already getting kind of stale, or if you can't be yourself, or if there needs to be expansion, that is going to put a lot of pressure on that issue. We can't refuse the call to grow when we have a significant square to Uranus like that. And we will resist, at least in the initial stages of that square, if we do want things to be what they've always been, or we are afraid of change, or it's just gonna be too disruptive. But we can only keep it in the jack in the box for so long. And so that's a very experimental year with that in the solar return chart. And we need to listen. We need to listen to the voice of change. If we don't, that's when things get really nasty. We can find ourselves in struggles that we didn't need to be in if we would have taken things into our own hands and made decisions for ourselves instead of dragging our feet, being more difficult, being more wishy-washy, and having other people end up making those decisions for us. All right, I think that's all I've got voice for. Oh, here, one more. Ascendant. What about the ascendant conjunct the descendant? Fabulous. Couldn't be better. Because what both people are looking for in the context of relationship and their shadow side is very much in tune with who the other person is on the outside, their armor, and it's just it's just like one of those things. You know, I've always been looking for these qualities, and this person just happens to fit into that. That could be very good. All right, one more, and then I have to go, guys. I have Pluto in conjunct to my Mars transit coming up. What does it mean? It means that you're going to feel a lot of pressure to act on whatever impulses, Martian impulses you have within you. But it's an in conjunction. We're generally pushed to the end of our rope, or the rubber band is stretched so far in terms of what we have to put up with that we'll snap or we'll lose patience. So it's a lesson in asserting yourself, but not repressing on it or sitting on it. Let me get better words. Hold on. How can you assert yourself in the moment and with the right amount of force? Because it's an in conjunction. We're always learning something about inappropriate sacrifice or acting out of guilt. So he can feel really victimized under all of the difficult transits from Pluto to Mars. And this is one we're going to have to really look at. Do you have something to do with any aggression or mistreatment that you may receive because you didn't stand up for yourself or assert yourself in the moment or in the point in time or in the right way with the right amount of strength? No, we have to look at our ideas about guilt and sacrifice, how that puts us in the headlights of potentially being a victim with any in conjunction. So how might guilt and shame be something that gets in the way of you being able to stand up for you in the moment and with the right amount of force and being able to keep yourself safe and keep yourself out of trouble without having to take something from somebody else or victimize someone else? So, yeah, those transits of Pluto to Mars can be quite rough. Because we're experiencing more aggression coming at us. It teaches us what is it that we're showing up with? What is our own frequency? Are we the source of some of this? And how, when we're on the receiving end of it, how can we take responsibility for our own anger, aggression, reactions, so we don't end up in a situation where we feel like we have to pay or we've lost traction or somebody has developed some kind of power over us because we lost it at some point and now we have to make up for it. So that's what I got, my dear. All right, that's what I have time for, guys. I'm so tired. Oh my god. I'm going to finish my tea and then I'm going to lay down and have a nap with my girls. And then I'm going to go get into the hot tub with my family tonight. I think I'm probably just going to talk. It's a cold, cold day here. It's a great day for snuggling up with little Pomeranians and hot tubs. All right, I'll check you guys out tomorrow. Bye.